Amazing. Well, hello, y'all. Welcome, welcome. YouTube is started, and then let's see. Hello, welcome. Breaking down a top sirloin today. And it's a dry aged top sirloin. Oh, they left. Wow, that's crazy. Okay. What do we do? Okay, wonderful. Let a couple people filter in. Hi, welcome. I'm just going to give a minute to folks wanting to join, make sure that everyone has time. But yeah, hey, welcome. Oh, hello. Amazing. Gang, I'm so excited. How y'all doing? Excited for some beef? Just so everybody on both platforms knows, hey, Instagram, this is also on YouTube if you want to check it out on YouTube. I'm not sure why you would want to, but I'm just kind of covering my bases. But yeah. Hungry, yeah, same. Oh my gosh. Well, actually, no, I just had some like dim sum leftovers, but pretty good though. Okay, cool. Yeah. So everybody, we can just start talking about some informational things. I've been dry aging a really nice boneless top sirloin in my fridge. And I'm super excited to harvest it. It's only been about Phoenix Talons. What is that? It's only been like 17 days, which I would ideally want to dry age any piece of beef more like a 21 day or like even like more weeks than that. But like my scheduling kind of worked out funny this way where today was like the right day to do it. And then also this is kind of an experimental dry age situation because I haven't done any other dry aging in in this particular fridge. So here I'll show Instagram. This is my work fridge with a TV on top. This is like a regular apartment fridge. And so there's nothing super duper special. It literally came from Lowe's and I got like as good a deal as I thought I could on it. And so it's like a super normal fridge if anybody is wondering about like the facility or hardware that I'm using. And here I can show you. Just a minute, I'll take it back. Reset. Okay. And of course, you always want to wait until like the very last second. Hi. Yes, also AKA the rump. So whenever you're doing like any sort of butchery, you want to make sure that like your whole setup is good to go, like all of your mise en place is ready before you bring the meat out of the fridge, especially if it's like a situation like this where like I'm just in like a regular new room and like ambient temperature is room temperature, as opposed to like working in a walk-in or like an otherwise cold room. So you do want to make sure that you get it out of you keep it in the fridge for as long as possible. And yeah, this is him. the dry aged top sirloin. You can see he's got like a really, really thick pellicle, like all that stuff, that super dark stuff. It's pretty much like beef jerky at this point on the outside. And it doesn't smell like anything. Oh, I did get a little bit of white, I think you can see it, white fuzz. Like that white spot there is genuinely fuzz. Hi, everybody. And it's so funny because that was a spot that like I cut because there was a flap here. Like there was a, hello, there was like a little flap here that the processors had left on there for me. And so my concern was that when you're dry aging, you want your surfaces to be mostly flat, and so it doesn't. Hey there. So you don't get bacteria like a little like harbor to lodge into. But it's so funny because those surfaces, the ones that like the processor had cut and like then I had also cut afterwards, they didn't dry out as quickly as like the rest of the surface. So just something to keep in mind. I'm not super concerned about the amount of fuzz that's on here. It's not egregious. It doesn't smell at all. And it doesn't like, yeah, it doesn't look like dangerous to me. Although, yeah, there is like a little bit more. So I wonder if I were to keep this in here for longer, how much more white mold I'd be accruing. And I'm pretty glad that we're harvesting him today. There's also no like green or blue mold, which is definitely, forgive the pun, but it's like kind of a red flag if there's like any like other weird colors going on. But like white mold typically is something that you can just kind of deal with. And even if it did have blue or green mold, what I had been taught to do in the past is, oh good, yeah, we got some approval for the white fuzz. But yeah, but then when you do end up with like blue or green mold, what you can also do is just trim it out. And that's one of the things that like was really appealing about a piece of meat like this is that there aren't a ton of nooks and crannies for green or blue mold to get into. And when I used to work in a dry aging steakhouse, that was one of the greatest concerns is that you had to like dig out all of the off-color mold. So yeah, there's that. I can show you guys a little bit about, before we start cutting and before I get rid of the set, I can show you what I had it dry aging on. Again, this is all in like an apartment sized refrigerator that like, granted is dedicated to meat aging projects because like it's just like my office fridge, but this is what it was sitting on, which is a standard half sheet pan and then a regular rack. And then underneath the rack, I put, that's a layer of salt. I would have preferred to use like rock salt. That's what I've used in butcher shops before. But all I had on hand was iodized, like table salt, which worked out pretty well. Like you can see like the brown stuff in there, like that would have been like just sitting around, like liquid sitting around in the pan and like potentially rotting in the fridge. Even if the meat was aging well, like potentially the liquid in a pan could have gone moldy. But I think the salt did a pretty darn good job at like keeping it sanitary and like not allowing any like weird mold to grow. Hi there. I do also have a little tag here that I was keeping track of like the date that I got it and like its original weight. And then a little note to myself that I should note what days I take photos of it because I totally didn't. And again, this is a proof of concept roast that we're doing today. So anyway, I'm gonna get rid of all that all of that salt after this, but for the time being, I'm just gonna pop it back in the fridge. Anyway, for anybody who just joined, this is that dry aged top sirloin, just like a slight bit of fuzz on the outside, but otherwise looking real good. And so the first thing that I want to do after like checking out whether or not there's like any like weird mold, I want to trim off any of the exterior stuff. And what I'm currently looking for is my steel. Which I don't know. I prefer diamond steel, but hang on, I have to go get my my ceramic. One sec. Okay, thanks for waiting, guys. So, excuse me, the reason why you want to like have your steel at the ready is that you want your blade to be pretty much at like the sharpest it can possibly be. Like there are some jobs where like a little bit of dullness will be a good thing, but what I'm shooting for on this is like the sharpest it'll go. Also, FYI, I have 3 bins, like 3 big platters here available for they're like landing pads for the stuff that I'm about to produce. And so one of them is going to be like trim and like miscellaneous garbage, because I don't think I'm going to hold on to any of the trim that I get off of this, like any of the burn. That's what the exterior is called at this point. But yeah, I know some people do. So anyway, I'm going to have one thing for just regular trim, and then one for roast that we're going to get off of here, and then one for hopefully the portions that we'll eventually get. And so yeah, so I'm going to wait and like start trimming the fat in a little bit, but the first thing I want to do is I'm going to start at the bottom here. And like when you'll see when I start taking this stuff off, but the exterior like dried layer is not very thick, and so you definitely want your blade to be like laying on top of the surface of the meat, like very flat. Oh, cool. And then generally you want to work in like the direction of the meat grain as it's going. So this is that first little chunk of burn that I'm trimming off. I've heard of some places like the Meat Hook will incorporate their dry aged trim into burgers, but like I haven't yet. And like as we were discussing earlier in this live stream, I did find a little bit of like white fuzz on the exterior, and like I don't feel great about grinding that into a burger, especially like if you're the kind of person who enjoys like a rare burger, or if you're going to be using it for tartare or anything like that. Like I don't know. Feel free to pop in the comments like if you have a strong opinion about what to do with the exterior. But my first inclination is to not use it for anything else. That might also be a thing about like dry aging in a relatively humid environment. Like I didn't do, well, we can get more into this later, but I didn't do anything in terms of like specific humidity control outside of the salt that I had in there. And I know like a lot of places will have like fans going the whole time. Like when I worked at Bateau, we had fans going the whole time. And like most walk-in refrigerators just have like a lot of airflow going on in the first place. But I did not, I guess I have a little computer fan that I could have popped in there, but I don't really have anything that I wanted to, I didn't have a fan, like a reliable fan that I wanted to put into the fridge with this guy. And so we just kind of left it as is. And again, this particular roast is like this time around is like a proof of concept to me, where I'm like, okay, well, let's see if it'll even work in this fridge. And I feel like it's doing pretty good. So I've gotten most of that first layer off. And it's pretty dark still, so I might continue to trim down the layers. But like in terms of smell, it's smelling really good. We're not coming across any like super sketchy, like moldy bits. So these are all like really good signs. Yeah, there is a good amount of white fuzz. I mean, not a lot, to be honest. And it's only been 17 days. Oh, yeah. For the record, this only aged for about 17 days. Hi. And I wish I could have done it for longer, but like, just again, like scheduling is not going to allow me to hold on to this guy for much longer. So at the end of this live stream, once I get it into like its individual muscles, I'm gonna vacuum seal them, and then that'll stop the aging process, especially because I'm going to freeze them after this. Oh no, my steel fell. Anyway, I think somebody mentioned something about the smell. Okay, yeah, and same with David. Geez, it honestly doesn't smell like much. It smells like barely like beef. Um, yeah, the exterior, like there's not much. There really isn't very much smell at all, and I feel like that's probably like a good sign in terms of um, like there are no off smells either. Like it could potentially like smell terrible, you know, like it's been hanging out in the fridge. Um, but yeah, typically when you're like looking for signs of smells, like a smell is often something to watch out for. Like not necessarily for dry aged beef, but this advice works best with like regular meat. It's like the smell test is the best one to test for like for freshness or like whether or not something is turned. Like the smell is definitely going to be the thing that's going to tip you off. And so that is to say, the fact that there's a lack of any like egregious or like offensive smells going on in this roast after 17 days, I'm pretty happy about it. When you let it go for longer, at least for beef, oftentimes you'll notice stuff like aromas that kind of remind you of like blue cheese, or like a strong Roquefort. And honestly, like the flavor when you are eating dry aged beef, oftentimes you will get like a fermented kind of aroma off of them. So anybody who just joined, we're trimming down this 17-day aged dry aged boneless top sirloin. It's from I was just like giving everyone a rundown. So just to catch anybody up, this is a 17-day aged dry aged grass finished top sirloin. It came to me boneless, and so we're having to trim off a good amount of the exterior. I haven't taken anything off of the top, and yeah, it's looking pretty good so far. Hi, Jelani. Okay, great. And so I'm pretty sure that this is just going to stay that kind of like dark color. And as we continue to cut, y'all are going to start noticing that it's going to bloom. And so that is to say, it's going to turn like a brighter red color, and that is perfectly natural. That's the proteins in the meat reacting with the oxygen in the air, causing like that bright cherry red. And there's a natural phase that it goes through, like a natural progression where it'll, like once the meat is exposed to air, it'll get bright. It'll get like really bright, and then it'll start to not be as bright. But don't ever be worried if your meat isn't like that bright cherry red, because that isn't even necessarily like an indication of like freshness. If it's gotten a little bit darker, that's perfectly natural, and it'll still taste really wonderful. I know that it's like really easy to be like impressed or be interested in something that is like brightly colored, but that bright cherry red is not necessarily an indication of quality or freshness or anything like that. So anybody just joining, hi, welcome, welcome. I'm just trimming off the exterior of this 17-day aged top sirloin. I got it from my local farmer's market, which was a little bit of an ordeal. But I'm really stoked because it is from like really close by. So in terms of like being local, it's a pretty darn good version of that. And then it's also grass finished, which I'm pretty stoked on because to my knowledge, that is like the best version of beef in terms of like its ecological impact. And what I'm doing right now is trimming off all of the dried exterior. So you can see kind of the texture here. If anybody's been like watching the saga, like in the posts and stories and stuff, there's that, like you've seen a bunch of it. And then just underneath is beef that just like looks like this. Oh, hey, Corinna. So yeah, it's still smelling really good. We haven't come across any like scary pockets of like of like mold or anything like sketchy in there at all. So I'm super stoked on getting to eat this. And to be honest, we've gotten like most of the exterior trimmed off. I have to take off like a layer of this stuff. Oh yeah, and like this is pretty illustrative of like what it has been looking like. There's that. Oof, that is a tough bit. It's really like when the exterior gets dry like that, it really is tough. And like the meat is one thing when it gets tough like that, like it starts to feel like jerky. But like if you have a tendon on the exterior that got dried out, it's like really, really tough to cut through. Which again is like one more reason to have your steel or your honing rod at the ready when you're doing something like this. Because yeah, otherwise it's like, ugh, like way more work when your knife is dull. Yeah, and one of the reasons that I'm like trimming this all off before seaming out the individual muscles is because I kind of want to, because it's only going to be on the outside, so I just want to like get it done and over with. Although, I don't know, if anybody does this on the regular, you can weigh in and like let me know if like you would seam it out first or otherwise just wait. Yeah. Yeah. Oh gosh. There's this one bit here that like, I don't know if y'all saw it, but I was like, when I first got this top sirloin, I was like kind of complaining about how there were slashes in the bottom. There were 2 big cuts in the bottom that I'm like, I know I'm going to have to deal with this later. And here we are, because now I have to like get my knife underneath a layer of that burn from the outside and then like take a hard turn to like get it through. Which will be worth it. Don't get me wrong, but like, dang. It's the best when like it's just a regular shape and easy. But you know, what's easy ever? Okay. So yeah. If you guys have any questions, feel free to pop them into the comments. As I'm trimming up the top, I do want to let you guys know that I have a whole pig butchery class in the works. It'll be the first like ticketed in-person event that I've had since the pandemic started. So I'm pretty darn stoked on that. If y'all are interested and if you're like going to be in the Seattle area in November, stay tuned because I'll have more info on that probably tomorrow. Tickets will be available on top, and yeah, there will be like pork shoes available. I think I'm gonna make some of it into bacon and ham, and the class will be before Thanksgiving, and so you can use what you get from class on your Thanksgiving table. Okay, I was trying really hard to like preserve this fat cat, but like sometimes you just can't. Okay, so I'm definitely gonna try to shave off the top of this bad boy. I wish I could show you like before and after shots like as I'm doing this. But we can still reference like all that all the posts from before. Darn, this got like really dark further into the fat than I was hoping for. I mean, I think it'll still be okay as long as I just take off like the very, very top layer. Where's that at? Oh, where's the class at? It's going to be at Osteria La Spiga in Capitol Hill. It'll be on the 7th. Thank you for asking. So yeah, back to the fat. I'm going to be just taking off like a tiny, tiny bit. And you can see like I'm trying to be like as delicate as possible in terms of like only taking off the very, very topmost layer. These actually smell really good. These have more smell than like the rest of the beef. And it does smell like, I mean, it smells like tallow. Just smells like mature tallow. Sorry, I'm the worst at describing individual like smells and flavors. Like I have a palate that has the physical ability to like sense that there are different flavors going on, but personally my brain just does not classify flavors that way. So like I can't like tell if like, oh, like there are notes of hazelnut or like I can't really tell. There are the people who can like taste wine like that. I'm like, that's amazing. But that's not really what my palate does. Oh, hey, welcome. For anybody who's just joining, this is my 17-day dry aged top sirloin. It was all grass finished from a farm in Western Washington. I got it from my local farmer's market. And yeah, so we got all of the bottom trimmed off. This whole pan is filled with what's called burn. That's the dried exterior of the dry aged roast. So it's pretty much like beef jerky. And I guess what you can do is kind of play with the humidity settings that you have available to you to like kind of raise the humidity a little bit in order to like prevent that stuff from getting too thick. Because the whole point of dry aging is not to dry it necessarily, although dehydration is a little bit of the process. Wait, hang on. Can you use that? Okay, so let's talk about the trim first, or the burn first, because you can use it. Some people use it. I did notice a little bit of white fuzz on this, so I'm not going to. And at Bateau, when I worked there, we never used it because sometimes there was mold that was like not pleasant on it. Like if you find like green or blue mold, like that is just straight up not something you want to eat. So we definitely have to, oh, hey, Bobby. You definitely want to trim off anything that's like blue or green, and you can't use that. This stuff did have only white stuff, but I'm still just like, I'm like kind of sketched out by it. But I will say though that the Meat Hook in Brooklyn, they put that into their burger grind, and I'm not sure like what their aging situation is in terms like what their settings are, like what kind of like hardware or like how much control they have over it, or but they feel comfortable serving it, and they say that it's like really amazing dry aged flavor that like gets into their burgers. And like, I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to that. For the record, I do think I'm gonna save this fat that I'm trimming off of the top because it doesn't smell bad or anything. It just smells like beef. Okay, cool. So I'm feeling pretty good about it, y'all. So this is the fat cap from our 17-day dry aged top sirloin. It was grass finished and from a farm in Western Washington. I'm pretty stoked. Okay, and then how am I going to eat this hunk of goodness? Super good question. I'm actually not going to eat it all at once. Now that we have all of the exterior taken care of, well, at least for the most part, I'm actually going to seam out the individual muscles from the top sirloin, and then I'm going to vacuum seal them individually, and then defrost as needed when I really want a steak. Thanks, dude. Okay, so let's take off the cap, which this is what people refer to as the cap steak. You guys are so funny. I'll DM me later. Let's chat. So it's also, it's not the tri-tip. Oh my gosh, I'm super blanking on the name, but like you'll have heard it as like I'm totally blanking on the name. Anyway, it's a cap steak. It's really beautiful, and I'm really stoked on it. So anyway, the first thing you got to do, these are the general steps that I've learned in terms of like how to break down a top sirloin, is usually you trim off a bunch of stuff here, and then there's like a little mouse muscle you can take off. That's also its own steak. I think that mouse muscle is still here. Oh, I think that's him. Yeah. So when people talk about seam butchery, what they're talking about is stuff like this, where like you get in between muscles, in between individual muscles, there's a little space of like fascia and fat and connective tissue. And that's called a seam. So when people do seam butchery, like we did at Bateau, the goal is to follow the natural contours of the muscles. And then what that means for your eating experience is that you end up with a muscle or a piece of meat, like a steak or a roast, that is all made up of one muscle that will cook the same way all the way through. So this, for example, is called the mouse muscle. It's super duper tender. I've worked at a lot of places where I was told to just put this into either grind or stir fry, but it is going to be a fantastic steak and will likely be a snack for me and my partner tonight. So yeah, that comes off of this side. And again, this was dry aged for 17 days, and there's nothing like weird or funky going on in here. Everything smells super good, like concentrated beef, like beef, but like a little bit more savory. And then the next thing I want to do, that's step one in the natural process of, or the typical breakdown of a top sirloin. The next step that I've been taught to do is take off the cap steak, which is over here. And you can tell where it is because as you turn the top sirloin, you can see this guy, this like cross section. I don't know if that's very clear at all. Anyway, there's this chunk of fat here that is so big you can get him out. And that leads you to the bottom of your cap. So I got that chunk of fat out from right here. I have the corner of the cap culotte. Is that the culotte? Thank you, John. I appreciate you. So yes, we have the corner of the culotte here facing away from me, and I'm pulling it back to utilize gravity because this side will pull away from where I'm pulling to. And I'm going to just taking the tip of my knife, like literally just like this much of the boning knife, if that much even, and like just kind of snipping at where the fat is between these two muscles. And honestly, like a lot of butchery really is like, especially seam butchery, is pushing or pulling. And so you're just doing like a couple little snips here and there to release. But like, yeah, like you can hear it too, right? Like it comes out just a little bit. And now that it's like up like this, what I want to do is try to see if I can leave this fat here on the rest of the roast. So now that that's mostly open, I have this guy that will flop over like that, and I'm going to try, yeah. So now that I can feel with both hands here that I'm just touching like between my two fingers here, it's just the fat. I'm going to hold up the steak and then with my knife, cut through here. And so now we have one really, really very well fatted culotte steak roast. Because this will likely be more than one steak, hopefully. And then now we have the rest of the top sirloin. Yeah, I'm super stoked, you guys. This is turning out really well, and it's so cute because, like, I mean, I haven't broken down a top sirloin in a while, and so it's like nice to see it again. Okay, so now there's still just like a little bit of like burn on here that I'm just gonna get rid of, because it freaks me out, the idea of just like letting it hang out in there. If anybody has worked with me here, they know that I'm a bit of a sanitation Nazi. And so I get pretty picky about it. There's that. And then, okay, so when you are breaking down a top sirloin, let's see, there are a couple landmarks you ought to look for, which I'm quite sure I have lopped off already. Although there's this one seam here that there's a pretty obvious line of fat, and that is an indication of the two muscles, because there's one muscle on this side and then there's like kind of a larger one on this side. So we're going to split those two apart because there's a like wall of silver skin right in there. Hi, Mara. Okay. Oh, look, I found it. So, like I said, this line of fat here is also a wall of silver skin in there. And so you can see at the very end, there's like a chunk of sinew. Gosh, I hope that's all showing up. Anyway, if you find yourself with a top sirloin, look for that line of fat and then follow it to one of the ends, because you can look at it from this end, but look, there's no sinew that makes it out to that edge. There is some sinew that makes it out to this edge. So what you want to look for is this white wall of silver skin. And honestly, it's coming away pretty easily. Again, like just with like the way, like pulling it apart with my thumb. But yeah, this is a good moment to still use your knife. And this one, I remember my head butcher would get so not mad at me because Tom is one of the nicest people in the whole wide world. But this is one of the situations where that I did kind of poorly at when I was working at Bateau, and my head butcher was like, maybe we don't have you do top sirloins very much, Christina. But whatever, this is my top sirloin, so I'm just gonna do it. Who cares? And I feel like it's going pretty well. There's a point where I always like lose the seam, and I think, oh God, I hope I can find it in here. But yeah. So anyway, while I'm doing this part, I just want to reiterate that in a little over a month or so, I will be having my first in-person whole pig butchery class since the pandemic started, or rather the first ticketed version. I've had one already that was like a private event, which if your kitchen crew is into that kind of thing, please hit me up. I'd love to do private classes for awesome kitchen people. But we're doing a ticketed event in a couple weeks at La Spiga. So please hit me up if you're interested in that. I'll have a post up tomorrow, kind of giving more details about it, but I'm pretty excited because it'll be a good time. Okay, great. So these are the two bits of top sirloin. Oh, for anybody who just joined, this guy came off already. He's the culotte. It's a really wonderful fat cap, which I'm really stoked on because grass finished beef is like almost always really lean. Excuse me, but this guy has a really, really generous fat cap on there. What am I most comfy butchering? The pork. Like I'm definitely most comfortable doing whole pigs and then like their subsequent pieces. Yeah, definitely. It's just like what I got the most practice at. Like that's what was available to me when I was working at restaurants. And so, yeah, there we are. And then for a little while there, I was working at Bateau, and and so I got to do like whole beef. And what was super nice about whole beef is that because quadrupeds are analogous in their anatomy, it made me a better pig butcher, like by like a long shot. It was like I was constantly working on like a zoomed in version of pork, and like I got like a lot better at butchering pigs after getting to butcher beef, like whole beef. Okay, so if this were Bateau, which I don't think that I'm going to do it this way exactly, but if this were Bateau, what we would do is tie this like put twine around in like regular increments, and then cut it into like little medallions, like yay big and then like yay thick or so. And then that would be like a petite, I think we call them petite top sirloins. So I'm gonna stack them up here in my little dunzo pile. And then, oh, my dog's barking. I wanted to show y'all that wall of silver that I was working around. And this is why you have to, or this is why it's most ideal. Oh my gosh, Corinna, did you guys actually show up? I'm just kidding. So this is why, if you're doing steaks, you definitely want to take out this guy before just cutting steaks across, because this will never break down when you're doing like a quick cooking situation. I don't think it's even, I mean, it would probably break down if you were to like pressure cook it, which is likely what I'm going to do because I'm not going to throw any of it away. My partner just got home, y'all. Not the dog, Corinna. Okay, so there are a couple ways you can go about getting the silver skin off of here. Typically when you're doing like denuding, what you want to do is like just slide. It'll be hard. It's hard to show because of the way that the camera is. Oh man, it's starting to rain out there. But anyway, it's kind of hard to show with how the camera is, but what you want to do is have it have a little bit of tension on the silver skin and then slide your knife in from the side, just barely underneath the silver skin. Move your knife forward, always facing up or pointing up just slightly. And then once you have a little tab to grab onto, you can hold that forward and then pull back with your knife. Again, keeping your knife as flat as possible and just slightly angled up. And that should take off your silver skin and very little meat, as little meat as you can possibly muster. Oh my God, this little wall of silver skin is so thick though, y'all. That is crazy. See, and it goes all the way down, like you can see it here. All of that shiny white stuff is silver skin, aka connective tissue, and this is the kind of stuff that like holds muscles onto bones and like bones together, kind of. And so that's to say, it is not something that you're going to chew unless you really like to do with thick, super duper thick silver. I will either pressure cook them or slow cook them for a long time and then roast them, or I'll just roast them. And then I like to use them in either stock because they give a lot of collagen to stocks to make like a really nice, thick, unctuous stock. Or I like to roast them and then use them as dog treats because dogs love that stuff. And that's why I'm also not super duper troubled by how much meat is on there, although certainly you could go through the bother of trimming that off. Yeah, which I guess is worth it. Because yeah, like that much came off of this silver skin. So this stuff is all gonna get frozen, and then I will make stock for it in a couple weeks. So now I'm gonna go around the rest of the sirloin roast and maybe get rid of some of the other tendon that's on there. Okay, and then I really like to be pretty particular about any of the burn that I allow to stay on there, because again, I'm like I'm a weirdo about sanitation. It's like very important to me that I don't make anybody sick, and so I err on the side of trimming off more of it than less. If this was in your kitchen and you were the one doing it, that's all you. That's all up to you, but please don't feed me bad beef. And then this part that we're at now is why we we're really particular about where we stopped taking off the culotte because we wanted to preserve this fat cap to potentially have some sirloin steaks with a fat cap on them. So yeah, there's that. Okay. And this, honestly, guys, is probably all of the trimming that I'm going to do. Oh, yeah, 6:40 already. This is probably all the trimming that I'm going to do. So here, let me grab the phone, and then we can take a little close-up tour of what's going on. Does anybody know? Can I just switch it? Oh, hell yeah. Okay. Okay, fam, you're here at a good spot. Sorry, YouTube. This is just, I guess, Instagram exclusive. So this is generally the setup that I've been using. Again, I've had 3 bins here. This one is just general trim. This is the mouse muscle. Anybody is familiar? Oh yeah, I gotta trim that off still. But I think we're just gonna eat this tonight. And then this little pile of trim is super duper tiny, but I think I'm gonna turn that into tartare in just a minute. And then this is a pile of tendons that's gonna go into stock eventually, or possibly be roasted for my dog. This is a pile of fat trim, and a lot of it came off of the surface, so I'm not really stoked on necessarily eating this, but I will likely render it out and maybe use that for cooking, or possibly for like candles maybe. This pile is all dry aged trim. This is all the exterior, aka burn. Hi there, welcome, welcome. And yeah, so I know that some people use it for grind, like the meat hook uses it for grind, but I'm not cool like that. So we're just gonna like compost it. And then this is the grand yield of our 17-day dry aged grass finished top sirloin. Here's our culotte with its super glorious fat cap. I'm so stoked, you guys. Like there's not a lot of fat in grass finished beef, but this guy had it going on. You can make some booty jokes here if you're hip to where the sirloin lives. Oh, you know what? Can you guys see that? The tiny dark spot there? I'm going to trim that off. Because, like I said, I'm very weird about sanitation, and I don't want to get anybody sick. I mean, whatever. This is just for me and my partner, and I guess Corinna and John when they come over. But yeah, there's that. Better safe than sorry. So I'm gonna get rid of that piece. So yeah, that's the culotte there. And yes, of course, there's still like more that I can be trimming off of there. But this guy, I'm pretty stoked on. All of this stuff, by the way, is gonna get vacuum sealed. And then, oh, hey there. And then we will be cooking them off over the next couple months, hopefully. So yeah, so then this is the side muscle. I know it was so sketchy. I won't do it again. So this is the sirloin side muscle. Oftentimes, or at least at Bateau, we would call it the petite top sirloin. If I really wanted to, I could go through the bother of like trimming off this little flappy bit at the top, so it's like rounder all around, and same with this little ridge here. But currently I'm not super worried about it. I think I'm just going to pop them into the freezer as is, or that is to say I'm going to vacuum seal them and then deal with the trimming later. And then this is the main muscle of the top sirloin with a still quite generous fat cap on there. This was, the exterior of the roast, so he's a little bit darker than the rest of it. And then this will be really lovely. Someday I'm going to, I think I'll probably tie it and then slice this into steaks just like that, probably pretty thick, like around that much thickness. Yeah, like you want these to be pretty generous, especially if you're looking for like a mid-rare situation on these guys. A thick steak is a good thing. And this will probably be, I will likely score this fat and then just roast it. Oh, hey there. So yeah, that's about it, gang. I think that's my dry age situation. Oh, you can see my plastic wrap on there. But yeah, so this was 17 days dry aged in my fridge. And then, yeah, that's about it. If anybody has any questions, you can pop them into the chat. But I'm just going to be getting these guys prepped for the deep freeze at this point. There. Okay. Hey, y'all. Welcome back. Oh, does anybody want to hear? How about this? Let's go over what my dry aging setup was in the fridge real quick in terms of like what I put together to like dry age stuff, which honestly is not much. So this is that basic AF fridge. Who is that from? Bobby, I don't want to tell you who it's from. Not because the farmer is bad, but because I had a really shitty buying experience from them. And I'm not sure if it's like something that I did or something that I said, or if like they just don't have their shit together. But I don't want to put them on blast and I don't want to endorse them. So I'm just kind of staying neutral on it. Sorry. It was from a farmer's market, and it was also you guys are so cute. It was from a farmer's market, and it was, from like a nearby farm, and they claim to be grass finished, which I believe them. So yeah, there's that. Any shmoo. I'm going to show you guys my little fridge, okay? So don't mind the weird leftovers, but this is here. This is where the magic happens, gang. So this is the top shelf where I had the beef hanging out, and this is a just a standard issue like half sheet pan and a half rack with iodized salt on top, like underneath the rack. And then this is where the beef was living, and it did give off some liquid, and so I'm super glad that the salt was there, because I'm pretty sure if that liquid were to just like the purge, if it were just to hang out in my fridge, like it would be, it would have molded, and then that would have sucked because that mold would have then gone onto the meat and like circulated around in here, and it's super awkward. So then one shelf down, which I do still need to like get rid of the salt. This is where I was dry aging that rose. No, Corinna, don't. Nobody DM me. Although me and Bobby DM about talking shit about farmers all the time. So if you do want some tea on some farmers, Bobby knows them. That's Let's Eat, BT Dubs. Okay, so this is where that pork was dry aging. That stuff, I will tell you proudly, was from a farmer called Bright Eyed Acres, and they are wonderful. And so that's like the pork shoulder roast that I was filming last week. And I cooked off for crispy pork skin, and I'm doing all that for a YouTube video for them. So yeah, I think that's it, y'all. I actually like need to get these guys back into refrigeration or into bags. And so I super just want to thank y'all for coming by. Again, I do want to mention that in November, I'll be having my very first ticketed whole pig butchery class at La Spiga on Capitol Hill. Details to come tomorrow, so please make sure, please stay tuned for all of that. If you found this at all helpful or informational, valuable, please hit up my Patreon. The link is in my bio. And yeah, have a fantastic, Monday night, and I'll see y'all soon. Bye. How do we end it? And now. Okay, YouTube, it's just us now. Okay, I'm telling Instagram to download that video because it always deletes it. Okay. Oh, I'm so sorry to Sunflower that I did not answer your question in time, but I will. I'll pop it into a DM to you or something. Anyway, for the record, with the darker trim pieces, what I'm going to do is compost them. I do know that there are some butcher shops that are that have their dry aging game down pat, and so they can use them for like putting into their grind for their burgers. But I don't feel great about that. So anyway, there's that. To answer your question, it's compost. Geez, I hope that gets to you somehow. If not, I will DM you. Anyway, thanks again so much, everybody. I hope you had a wonderful evening and talk soon. Bye.